What I'm going to do now is I'm going to join Nick on the platform, and we're going to look at a few of the rods in the range, starting at the bottom of the range, which is in the Sportfish catalogue, which is the classic outfits. We'll have a look at that first of all, then progress through the range and mention a few fishing tips as we go through the range that we've got. Hi Nick.
How are you doing?
Okay, we'll swap with now, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Happy with that one?
It's great. I'm having a lot of fun with this one actually. It's beautiful.
There you go. Right, what I'd like you to have a play with first of all is this is the classic, which
Okay.
They start at £69 at retail.
Okay.
The classic outfits, they start at £125. So someone can go today, go fishing with a complete outfit, rod, reel and line all ready to go,
Okay.
with a leader on the end and everything for £125 up to £150.
Perfect.
So this is a classic weight. It's a 9'6" weight, which is a really good starting place for anybody really. So if you want to go on a still water,
Yeah.
you want to go on a river, maybe you can still get away with that as well.
Okay.
So please have a play with this one. It's the classic rod, classic fly line.
I'll swap
I'll
over.
keep
You
back
can
from
take
the
that
S.
one. We'll give this one a little whirl.
Now that we're very keen at Snowbee to make sure that when anyone's got a rod, reel and line in their hands that they use a balanced outfit, and the one you've got there now is a 6-weight outfit. So you've got a 6-weight line, a 6-weight rod, it's a 9'6" weight, and you've got the small classic reel, which is a composite reel, so it makes it very light as well.
It feels very light, in fact. It's a very nice, balanced, light, sort of easy starting point, I'd say.
Good. It's what we would call a reasonably soft action.
Yeah, that's
say
very nice.
A mid-action rod, really.
Yeah.
It's quite soft. When we introduced these rods a few years ago, we had a rod in the range at the time, which was our diamond rods, which were 3-piece rods and so on.
Okay.
And the production of these was so successful, although they were at the budget end of our scale, if you like, we decided as well to introduce the diamond range in the same sort of format as these are, but with a lot of improvements, obviously, in the handle, in the quality of the cork, and in the construction of the blanks as well. So they're coming out of the same place, and the diamonds would be the next one up to this. But as an introductory place to start, there's a number of rods in the range right through from small weights for the river. We also do a junior outfit, which is a small rod that is in a 6-weight. So it's not too heavy for juniors.
No.
But I know, Charles, you're involved with the schools project and everything. We wanted a rod that's not too long for people to use, for kids to use and so on, and it's also useful for a brick rod at the same time.
I think, Simon, it's worth making the point, though, that often when you're talking about young people and rods, they give them too small a rod.
Yes.
There's always that, I reckon about an 8-foot rod is perfect for a young person, you know, depending on how big that young person is. They've gotten bigger, have you noticed?
Yeah, indeed they have, yeah.
Well, look at
Ours
your
as well.
son, you know what I mean? But, yeah, I don't know, but I know that getting the right gear, starting off with the right gear is so fundamentally important to their journey forwards.
Absolutely.
It really is. So if you get a good kit to start with, it doesn't put you off the sport, and I know you wouldn't do that. So
Well, we've started off with a 7'6" weight for
you
them.
look
So.
at Nick. I mean, he's only been fishing for the last 5 minutes, and look at the loops he's putting out. Look at this.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's a very easy rod to get on with, actually. I'm really enjoying that. Throws out a beautiful
Right.
line.
Yes.
He is enjoying that.
Yes.
Don't fall for it.
Yeah.
Don't.
Okay.
What's not to like about fly fishing?
Well, what I'm going to do next, I just want to go and we'll look at the diamond range, which is the next one up in our range. And these are available at under £200, starting with £150 upwards, 165. And as you can see in the finish, we've added a few things. This has got an aluminium finish on the insert here. This has got a burwood finish. The cork is a better grade. The blank itself is actually slightly better grade as well. We use what we call our trimodulus carbon blanks here. And the trimodulus means the different tonnage of carbons as a mixture through the rod, so you can actually get the performance we want from butt to tip, if you like. So if you want a fast action tip, then you put a high modulus carbon in to make it a faster rod. With this rod, it's got plenty of strength to them, and they've also got a nice soft tip, and we would describe it as a mid to tip action on these. Slightly faster indeed than that, so if anyone was progressing from the classic upwards, you might perhaps go to this one.
You'd look to that to go for your next step up.
I'll just pick up something different between these two, by the way, Nick, because this is a 7 weight. It's a 9.5 foot 7 weight.
Okay.
This is a 9 foot 6 weight, so it's one weight up. So,
Okay.
and 7 being,
Yeah.
5, 6 and 7 being the line weights for them under the AFTM scale, the American scale, which was introduced many years ago for the weight of the first 30 feet of the fly line, okay?
Okay.
Because there was no standard at one time, so they brought it in. Things have moved on a bit since then. We produced something which we called the 3D series of spay lines a while ago, some years ago now, and more recently I think people have got slightly heavier lines,
Yeah.
and the line really performs at the back of the head weight, so the profile of that head and the length of that head and everything is really important to the cast. This one we put on there for you now is the thistledown fly line.
Okay, the thistledown.
Yeah. So it's a very light line. We do 3 thistledown fly lines in the range. One, first of all, we do from 1 to 4 weight, which is unusual because you're covering more than one weight of line setup. Then we move to the 2 to 5 weight, which is from a 2 weight rod up to a 5 weight rod. And the one you've got here is for any rod at all between 5 and 7 weight.
How have you been able to achieve that?
It was achieved as much as anything, Charles, by accident.
Right.
To be fair, we had a line out that was called Extra Distance, which had a 30-foot head on it,
Right.
and the 30-foot head cast really well. It was a fast sinking line,
Right.
and casting that, it was 120 foot long, and you could actually reach the full 40 yards with just 30 feet out the tip of the rod, which was the head length. And we thought, well, that'd be really good. Why don't we produce that in a floating line? So we put it into a floating line with a 30-foot head, and of course it was like a piece of rope, because you had to get the weight in there for the floating line at 30 feet, and it didn't work. It was literally like casting a rope through the air.
Yeah.
So we had to go down in size and make the head slightly longer. And the more you go down in profile, obviously it cuts through the air better, and it actually flies. I mean, if you launch that into the air,
Well,
it almost flies through the air.
I mean, we were talking about this taper, and it's one reminiscent of one I was familiar with years and years and years
Yes.
ago, and it's basically a very refined shooting rod.
Yes, I
In
would agree with that.
essence.
Yeah.
I
In
mean,
sense, yeah.
that's what it is.
Essentially, yeah, I
But what
suppose it's quite
wanted
similar.
to say, and if you look at that fly rod, if you were talking about the cosmetics and that and the price,
Yes.
you know, if you look at that, Simon, and I can do this in a totally unbiased way.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. I mean, you're looking at the kind of finish on a fly rod that is actually you would have seen on a rod maybe 400, 500, 600 quid years ago.
Indeed, yeah.
Now
yeah,
you've
yeah.
got this one, and the grade of cork is extraordinary.
Yeah. And we've actually, on our new rods, on the GXS range, which we'll come to in a little bit, we've even got a more superior grade of cork again, a Canadian cork, which is
It's
phenomenal.
beautiful. I mean, it's just a nice, desirable rod to have.
Going back to that line, what in terms of shooting head, a lot of people perceive a shooting head, you'll cast a long way with it, and it'll go down and land like a sack of potatoes on the
Yeah.
water, which actually is not what you want. So
Oh,
we've
this
got
lands
quite a-
beautifully and softly.
Exactly. We've got a lovely profile on there. It's quite a long profile on the front to
How
give it
does-
the
if
presentation.
if I was getting one of these lovely lines,
Yes.
how would I come? And I'm going to the lighter end of the spectrum, knowing that they're straddling the heavy end of the spectrum too.
Yes.
How do I overcome that heaviness that might come when I'm aerialising line?
If you're finding its heaviness, I mean, I've tested it on all different rods and everything. If you're finding it heavy, you can always shorten the amount of tip that's out of the rod. I mean, Nick was having a look earlier,
Right.
and you can find that if you go too far onto the running line and try and turn it over, it doesn't cast. So it's quite important that we have a colour change between the running line and the head, and then you've got a gradual taper between the two, so that over that distance, which is like 5 or 6 feet, you can actually, depending on the ability of your cast and the weight of the rod to suit it, when you find the right point, you'll know exactly where to load
Right.
it to give you the best
It might be a
performance.
good idea, actually. I mean, I know this is from a practical point of view. If somebody gets one of these lines, finds the absolute point that is perfect for their system,
Yep.
just mark it with a Pantone pen.
Indeed,
or something.
you can mark it with a Pantone pen. You can
Yeah.
mark it at the end of the line, which you would see it, or you can actually mark it a place in your hand, which
Yeah.
I've used before when I've been salmon fishing and so on. But what you can also do, and it's a technique that I've used when I'm fishing sinking lines, is you can get some high-vis fly time material, so like your bright orange or whatever,
Yeah.
and just whip 3 or 4 turns onto
Okay.
the rod, onto the line rather, at the point is the same place, because then you can feel it go through the
Yeah.
tip ring, and you know then exactly when it can be. If it's too much, it's annoying, but
Yeah.
or you can put it just through where it's through your fingers. You just feel the click exactly
Yeah.
where you want it. Then you don't have to pay attention to what you're looking at. You can then concentrate on your
Yeah.
fishing.
Anyway, enough of me making silly remarks.
It rolls
Okay.
very nicely as well.
You like that too, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, we call it the line that makes you smile with every cast.
Yeah, I
eh?
mean,
Yeah.
it would be very at home on a river with this line as well. So you're not going to spook fish. It lands very gently. It rolls very nicely. I think at any range, you're happy fishing.
And it's a
Close,
nice colour
trying to
too.
it. Yeah. It's subtle. It's not going to, oh, there's a fish right there.
Is
See,
that?
he hasn't
Oh
noticed
yeah,
it.
nice fish. Yeah. Right, so that's that. In terms of, as Charles was just saying about the finish and everything on that rod, these are a very popular performing rod, if you like. They're quite forgiving in a cast. So you know when you're talking about golfing and so on, you get a really fast shaft. You can hit the ball probably further.
Yeah.
It's not designed to give you the ultimate distance cast, but it still will give you this line, for example. I mean, that's 90 feet long. You could throw all that 90 feet line if you wanted to with that rod.
Oh.
You struggle with it around there at the minute, but
It wanted to go there though.
Exactly, yeah.
Absolutely. With very little effort. I didn't really feel like I needed to put it in a lot of double hauls or anything aggressive.
exactly.
It just kind of picked up and it shoots out. So
the other thing is we've got a bit of a crosswind, Nick.
Yeah.
And you could, if you wanted to, because it's very thin, you can actually cast it across the wind too.
let's try and get
So,
something a
you
little
wanna have
back
a cast?
cast here and see how she goes.
The wind's coming from my right here, from Nick's back in respect. There you go. So
There you go. So
you don't have to have a big heavy line to be able to cast in all conditions, and this line will do everything for you. It's only
Absolutely.
available in a floating profile, but there are 3 different options. So it's a 1 to 4, a 2 to 5, and the one you've got on here is the 5 to 7.
Okay.
A little bit light on that rod because it is at the top end of the 7 weight, and you're needing the full head to get the best performance with that rod for the optimum head weight for the best cast.
Okay.
If that was on a 5 weight, you wouldn't necessarily need to go all the way to the end, but it'll just feel a little bit heavy sometimes.
Okay.
But not over heavy. It'll still get great presentation because of the
Yeah.
profile of it.
Very
Okay.
good.
Right, what we'll do from there is there's another rod in the range before we come to our Prestige, which is the top of the range, which
Okay.
is the ones in the catalogue mainly. And we'll look at what we call the Spectre range, which we introduced a few years ago, and we then improved that Spectre range by putting in the American tackle guides on the bottom.
Okay.
If we just have a look at the moment here, this is quite traditional in all respects, both the butt and the full Wells handle we've got on this one. There's a half Wells on here, that's the difference between the two. But for
Yeah.
a heavier weight, all our rods over 6 weight will have a full Wells handle. The 10-foot 5 and 6 weight will also have a full Wells handle because
Okay.
you want to be able to hold the
Yeah,
rod. You know, a
absolutely.
long rod, you want to be able to grip it.
Yeah.
Except for the nymphing rods, of course, which have got a much finer,
Much finer grip on them.
much finer. And we also put a bit of burlwood in the top as well.
Okay.
But on the rings here, we've got 2 stripper rings, and on which we'll come on to in a moment. That's to help the line actually start to feed up through the rod and provide minimum resistance. And obviously with this thin, lightweight line and the shooting head and so on, that's a massive advantage.
Absolutely.
But that's quite traditional.
Yeah.
With the new series of the Spectre rods, we've actually changed that over to the American tackle rings. Some years ago, we produced a deep blue rod which had 2 rings quite close together.
Yeah.
And because it was quite uncharacteristic, a lot of people went, "Oh, I'm not sure this is right." But
remember
the
it.
whole idea of that was 2 concentric rings almost that would actually help channel the line up through the rod itself with minimal resistance, but actually getting it straight out through the top to
Yeah.
reduce that resistance to improve your casting. So
Absolutely.
let me show you the other one.
Okay. Yeah. Okie dokie. Let's have a look at that one. Oh, okay. I see what you say about the eye there.
Okay.
So that's very different.
So this is what we call the Spectre RMX, and the Spectre came out originally and we improved it with the RMX rings that are on there now. And this is 2 concentric rings, basically as the running line, which is obviously thinner than the head that's showing here at the moment, reaches this point here, it helps to channel it up through the rods and reduce the amount of resistance as it casts. On spinning rods, for example, on monofilament with these types of rings, it can improve the cast by up to 20%.
Wow. Okay.
It's not quite so beneficial with fly rods because your running line obviously is a bit thinner, but on your thinner lines like we've just been looking at just now with the thistledown, that's when you see a real advantage.
Okay.
I know from speaking to you earlier, you've spent years out in the Seychelles and done a lot of saltwater
Yeah.
coaching and fishing and so
Yeah.
on. You like a faster action rod.
I certainly do. You know, for my personal style of fishing, I get on with them faster rods. Feel they're a little bit more accurate, a little bit more punchy. They suit my style of casting. So, you know.
Okay, but you're a skilled caster, Nick. And for someone that's a beginner, as I mentioned or went to mention earlier about playing golf,
they can be rather unforgiving to somebody
Absolutely.
who's not quite there with their casting yet.
yeah. So if you don't get your timing quite right, then you can end up being embarrassed by your performance, if you like. With the 2 rods we've looked at so far, both of them are very forgiving and ideal for anyone starting out that hasn't reached the skill level, if you like, of your casting. With this one, however, this is a faster tip. It's a faster, higher grade of carbon, and we did design it purposely for distance casting. And then to help that benefit, we came up with the RMX range, which was an advance on the original Spectre with the new rings to help with the cast at the same time.
I think, Simon, with that ring configuration,
Yes.
when you were talking about when you're doing it with a spinning rod, you get that oscillation of line.
Yes. Yeah.
And what people are unaware of, when the fly line goes out, it goes out almost in a wave.
It does.
Doesn't go out in a straight line. Everyone has this idea it goes out in a straight, but if you look, it does a wave.
Yes, indeed.
And anything you've got there will flatten that wave, and of course that's going to help it shoot through the ring.
Indeed.
So it
Minimise
really
those
does.
wavelengths. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that gets you the distance.
Yeah.
We also looked at, from a casting point of view, we looked at offsetting the ring, because that's the other way to do it. But of course, the left-handed and right-handed rods you'd finish up with, and that's not going to help anybody. So we've ended up with one central ring.
You do it yourself.
You can do it yourself, yeah, if you want to. And the top professionals, the casting professionals, some of them do. So.
Well, if you get, I'll tell you, here's a top tip for you.
Yeah, go on then.
If you get mud, you know when you get it really claggy and you know you get all the debris and stuff on the rings and on the fly line.
Yeah,
just
like
offset
sandpaper.
it a bit.
Yes.
You'll open up the aperture and just goes straight out.
Perfect.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to feature something else now because, okay, before we move on to the next range, the final range of rods rather, and that's on this year. A lot of people have been catching big fish. Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to pick up on there in particular, and I've got one on here which I can show you very quickly, is this tapered leader. So it's useful to use a tapered leader, and what we have, let me put that there a second, is you have a tapered leader, which can be, we do a 9-foot tapered leader, and then if you can pick that up here, I then put on the end of the tapered leader a small steel ring. Can you see that? Okay. And that means that once you've got your tapered leader, you can then extend to the end whatever you want to put on the end. So if our tapered leader is made up from a monofilament, we would have put fluorocarbon on there. So it's really clear today. I mean, you can see that fish down there. We can see the bottom. It must be 15 feet deep down there.
Yeah, definitely.
You might want to fish a lot lighter, but of course today, with the big fish that have been around since lockdown and so on, everyone's struggling and getting broken off. Yeah, so I would recommend, I mean, I've got one or two here somewhere, these leaders which are...
That fluorocarbon will cut through the mono quite easily, especially when you've got very strong fish pulling really hard.
It will indeed. So this type of thing here, this is what we call tapered copolymer nylon leader. Okay, they're $2.99 today for a set. They're 9 foot long, and it's made of camouflage material. So in that camo process, it's actually introduced a heat process to put the camouflage into the monofilament. And what that's doing is giving it a certain amount of stretch. So if I take, which one's that? No, it's on the other rod. We'll look in a second at the next rod. And I've got the camo leader on there to give you that bit of stretch. So you can still fish pretty fine and not worry about getting broken off. And go down finer if you need to on conditions like today to actually improve your fishing and catch more fish. So let me go and grab the other rod.
It's very clear today. So another thing I've noticed with this rod is that it's got a sort of matte blank finish rather than a very high shiny finish. So on a day like today, it's going to be less shiny things flashing around above the water. So that can always give you, every little bit of advantage helps. Beautiful rod.
Okay.
Right,
so what we've done, that's got a faster action, and as I was just mentioning, when you've got a faster action rod for better distance and performance like you've got, and for better casting, once you've mastered the technique of the cast, it means that there's more resistance, if you like, when a fish takes, so that's where there's a risk of breaking off. So we're trying to make everything right by improving the performance of the blank, and also try and improve your leader at the end. So what I've done on here is we've got a nice thin leader on the end. It's fluorocarbon. Okay. So I've gone down to, I mean, you probably want to pay out 6 or 8 pounds on here possibly, because I know there's some very decent fish in here. And
There are some beasts in here.
with this leader material, this camo, would you like to take that for me?
Yeah, let's grab that there.
Feed that out. I just want to show you the difference here. If I hold this leader up, this is the camouflage leader. There's the ring at the end, okay, just here. And if I hold this up, you can see the amount of give that we'll now get from, see that?
Oh wow, there's a lot of
That's
stretch
going to give
in
us a
that.
lot of give. It's still going to be enough to connect with the fish. When the fish takes, you're not going to lose it because there's no resistance.
You'll be able
there.
to set the hook evenly there, yeah.
You can still set the hook, but that'll actually be more forgiving, and it's fantastically useful when you're on rivers. If you want to go down to something like 0.8, 2 pound leader, 1.5 pound, 1.7 pound leader, whatever, this is a really useful benefit. It's a tapered leader with a bit of stretch in it, and that's what we call the camo leaders. We do them down to about 2.5 pounds.
Okay, fantastic.
So this now, the rod you've got here, we've gone away from this ring configuration here because we felt we wanted to have something a little bit more traditional for people. This is quite advanced in terms of casting, and this is an out-and-out casting rod, and we do these for spey casting and everything. We've got the switch rods and so on, all in this type of blank in the Spectre material. However, what we've introduced now is the same sort of material, but we've increased it with the graphene material that's in there now, and the graphene is just phenomenal. It means that you can have a really strong rod. It's extremely light to cast. I don't know how that compares in weight. This is a 6 weight, that's a 7.
I mean, yeah, it's still very lightweight, and just from those couple there casts, I felt that it's fast enough action, but obviously with graphene, it is a lot more forgiving once
Indeed.
you're actually fighting fish.
And then, as you say, but then when you're fighting fish, you've still got the speed. The graphene introduces a fantastic recovery in the. Well, that's just gone miles. It introduces a lot of power, okay, in the rod in terms of flex and recovery for the cast when you're shooting forwards. But also when you get that fish on the end and it takes, it actually helps you with playing the fish because it's soft enough in the tip and you can get away with it because it's strong enough with the graphene in there. Graphene, incidentally, is a fantastic new product. I think it was discovered in about 5-6 years ago in Manchester University, for which they got the Nobel Prize. The material itself is incredibly thin. The molecules are extremely small. A molecule the size of a football pitch would weigh, what do you reckon?
I couldn't even imagine how much would that weigh.
Okay, well, if one molecule thick, the size of a football pitch, would weigh 1 gram. It's incredible. Okay. So, and then it's actually 200 times, or claimed to be 200 times stronger than steel. And
Wow.
what we've done is mix the graphene molecules into the resin that goes to perform this rod. So, in the manufacture. So it's GXS, XS being the original Prestige, and the G stands for the graphene, which we've introduced today. Awesome casting rod. What we've also done to the S, and we've got a burlwood inset there, that's a maple burlwood.
Very nice
burlwood
finish
bean
on the
root,
butt
and
section
every
there.
single one is individual from that respect as well, which is a nice thing to have, a bit like your shotguns and so on, everyone's
Yeah.
completely individual as we've got here.
That's beautiful.
And then in terms of the fly lines, what we've done as well, we've introduced this new fly line here, which you've got on there. This is what we call the Spectre fly line. We've got 3 densities, a floating, an intermediate and a fast sink. And the line has got a 47-foot head, so it's about another 5 or 6 feet longer in head length than the standard Snowbee XS profile. And it absolutely flies.
It absolutely flies. It's a lovely line.
We were speaking at the start of the program about the AFTM weight, the weights of lines and so on. These
Yeah.
are slightly higher in weight, as modern lines are, many of them are today. It's not a full weight up on the previous one, but that actually accounts for the new faster action rods which
Absolutely.
are available than what the standards were some years ago when they first introduced it. And just in terms of new products and so on, this is we've got a range of rods right through from a 10-foot 2 weight. With a 9.5-foot 3 weight is a fantastic river rod. This is the 10-foot 7 we've got here, and there's a whole range of rods in the graphene series. But what we've also got coming in now, as you were playing with just now, are 2 new saltwater rods, a 7 and an 8 weight.
Okay, yeah.
For the tropics, or even for back here if you like. And they're the same material, they're slightly different colour, and we're just improving, just finishing off the actual butt sections on those to finish them off. So the 2 we've had here are the prototypes, and they'll hopefully be in the range very soon. So
Yeah, they're very nice.
Yeah.
Very, very nice stuff.
it's good.
This is enjoyable. I'm really enjoying this rod and setup.
Well, I've got a whole range of products that are on display on the catalogue, obviously, and as I mentioned, that anyone wants. I mean, these fly lines retail between 57 and 65 pounds. Your salmon fly lines are 65 pounds. So, but anyone spending 50 pounds on anything will be entitled to the draw for one of those jackets, as I mentioned earlier. And we've got a whole range of bags, all the other bits and pieces, accessories and so on from the Snowbee range. And yes, it's been a pleasure to see everybody. Charles has brought us the rod. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm a great gilly.
Thank
I'm
you.
A great gilly.
Okay,
I'm looking for a job actually.
They are. As I say, this is a fantastic piece of cork on here. It's Canadian cork, which is brand new. This is the colour that we're going to have in the new performance on the GXS saltwater rod, as you can see there, and they'll be available in the market in a couple of months' time. This is a prototype, and all we're going to do is probably improve the